Hey everybody, Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, LoneStarMobiles.com. It is Sunday, February 9th, a little after 5 o'clock. I am freezing, I haven't eaten anything, and that said, we're going to get this cranked out. This is going to be a pretty good little tool haul here from KC Tool. I will say we're not going to spend a lot of time on some of these items, and that's because I'm planning on coming back and doing standalone videos for them. Some earlier than others, but with that said, kind of need to get this cranked out. I've been super busy at work. I am not out of videos. The videos I have left, which are quite a few, are just primarily more like automotive related stuff, you know, car projects, things along those lines. I like to kind of mix stuff in with the tools. And this is out of order by quite a bit. There's probably 2 or 3 tool hauls from KC Tool alone that I need to record prior to this one, but this one is kind of like a special one. It's like the birthday edition, and we're just going to go ahead and bump it up to the top. So what number it is, not 100% sure. I'll figure that out when I go in to edit it. But like I said, if you see something you're really interested in, fear not. There's going to be a shorter standalone video in the not too distant future. So first thing first, let's get started with this stuff. I kind of like to do follow-ups from time to time. If you've recalled, I have invested not super heavily, but somewhat decently in T25 stuff. And there's one place that I deal with at work, and they would send crates, and they were done immaculately with tons of T25 fasteners. So I'd been kind of building up my stock to handle all the times that they sink them, you know, halfway through a 2x4 or, you know, a sheet of plywood. And last week, a crate arrived, and for the life of me, nothing I had at work. No pry bars, no crowbars, nothing. You know, they are older, you know, they're not super sharp tipped or anything. But it was stapled, and it was stapled so tight, I couldn't get anything to it. I started to just get my scroll saw and just kind of, you know, trim around the edges. But with me not knowing how things were packed inside, I sort of couldn't resort to that. So what I did is I moved on to other things, and then I waited, and I came back with this little arsenal from home. And what I took with me was a little Engineer hammer here from Gedore, one of their chisels, so we can kind of get a proper use of that, and then one of the Wera chisel drivers. And I have this on. This is what I bought this for, was to use it for kind of like soft stuff. And what I've wound up doing more than anything here as of late is using this just sort of like as a cover for when I'm hauling it. And it works really good. It sounds incredibly stupid, I'll be the first to admit, but I've not cleaned this or, you know, run a rag or anything over this, but as many times as I've used this, not disregarding taking it to work this past week, that is in immaculate shape. I mean, you would have no idea what that sucker has been through. It has held up very well. The chisel did leave some of its coloration on it, and not a huge deal. Then I wound up having to use the chisel driver from Wera, but right here you can kind of see the head, and that was mainly just cutting through plywood and staples. And typically with staples, I've started coming in and I'll use like pincers. It works really well. These were sunk into the plywood, and it was just a nightmare. I spent an awful lot of time dismantling this crate, more than I would like to admit, but got it done. There's the head of the chisel, so it's doing just fine. Backside, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, if you could take away the fact that, you know, the finish material was gone, it would look in pretty good shape too. So obviously this I can clean up either sandpaper or just on a wire wheel real quick. If we need to sharpen it, we will. What I was very impressed by, this is the Wera chisel driver. Obviously we're not too concerned about using this one up before we test it because it's not a number 2 Phillips. But right there, this came in the set. The handle has a few smudges on it. You can't really see them. Over time that will happen. The tip on this thing though, it looks almost unused. And probably on Instagram later this week I'll get some pictures up of this thing wedged in between the plywood. But it was a warrior, and for the tip to come out that unblemished, even if I flip it to this side, it's still got the black finish in place. That's not a painted tip like you see with cheap demolition screwdrivers. And you have to remember, Wera themselves, this was not just a striking cap. They advertised this yellow handle driver as a chisel driver. And as a good consumer who was desperate to get into a crate, who am I to question them? I'm going to use it as a chisel. There are many times that Going back to my old stock of acetate handled screwdrivers, when I'd have to chisel with those, I would break the shafts. This did not break, this did not flex. If you note, this is not a round shaft, it's a hex shaft, and I left hex-shaped indentions in the plywood. It was pretty impressive. The bread and butter here, though, so you can kind of get an idea of how much this was used, it had that really nice sort of like dull sheen on it. Hard to explain, but luckily I haven't used the #1 Phillips. So this is a virgin. I mean, if it's been tapped, it's been barely tapped, but essentially virgin here in the left hand, and then this one was abused at work last week. That's where you see the shiny spot from where it struck that hammer. But the bottom line there, the tip, you honestly would have a hard time telling that this was ever used. Again, I could probably, the handle doesn't look that dirty on the camera. It's not super dirty, it's just, you know, in a machine shop, you get that on your fingers, like cast irons everywhere, right? And so there's a couple smudges. I could honestly clean that up, and I think I could hand this to somebody as a gift and they wouldn't know it had been used. Not that I would do that, mainly just because I still need it. But I like to give updates from time to time, and it ties in nicely with this segue too. The quarter sales. This is good through March 31st, the round of screwdrivers. If you're interested in trying some of Wera's chisel drivers, that's a nice step into that. There's also a couple of these Cyclops sets. Some of them with the standard ratchet, some of them with the speed ratchet. I've been very, very close to bringing that in. They've got the other stuff back here, but again, these are on sale. You can find them in the sales section on KC Tool if you're so inclined. That's also a good way to bring it up. Yes, the numbered 1 through 25 Wiha bits that we were trying to catalog, those do seem to be officially gone, officially out of stock, if you will, and they've moved on here. They're not Philo bits anymore, they're not Wiha bits anymore. This is actually from Wera, and it is, of course, a #2 Phillips bit, as you probably expected. That's going to be what the vast majority of us would use most frequently. Unlike the Philo ones that also had KC Tool stamped, this does not, but it is a standard bit. Should be able to put it to good use, and it's actually very well done, I must say, from Wera. So we will pan back out. I did exceed the $100 threshold, so we got ourselves a German sticker pack. So in addition to the bit of thanks, if you exceed $100, you'll get this set up for free. The t-shirt, I want to say, is $200. Don't hold me to that. I've covered this many times. We've got a ton of them, and we try to use them as best we can when we can. So toss those over to the side. I'll get this cap back on. Again, the plastic side of the hammer has actually been pretty handy, but if you do have to ever transport it, maybe in your wife's vehicle or something, not a bad option. So we'll scale this up, I should say. A couple of telltale signs here. I'm trying to decide what we want to get started with, and I think we're going to reach over here. That's right, it's not all in front of you. Some of it is off to the side, and in my hand we have, from NWS, part number N963-1-85. This is going to set you back all of $991. And if you see here, if you've already spoiled it for yourself, single blade. That's right, this is sort of their single blade cable knife. And if you're thinking, hey, don't you already have that? The answer is no, but I do have something similar to it. And what I have similar to it, and fear not, we're going to have a much more in-depth follow-up on this, is that guy right there. And that, ignoring the thumb issues, right? That is probably the most stubborn knife I have ever had to deal with. One of the last times I was out here in warm weather days, I was just kind of passing some time while I had something charging up, and I went to town on this one and the Gedore one, and I was just opening and closing, thinking eventually I'm going to hit my threshold to break it in. Never really happened with this one. The Gedore is actually getting a little better. I don't know if I need to throw this one in the sand for a little bit or something, but I've got something in mind. We're going to follow it up. But if this looks similar, it should, because again, we have brought this one in. Price on this one I think is like 26-ish, but you do get quite a bit more. However, if you're just looking for a simple pocket knife with the ability to cut cable, okay, that was actually pleasurable. All right, this is left hand, right hand still has the thumb, which is doing good, by the way. That video I had to release yesterday, the Amazon glove haul Amazon haul number 4. That was recorded a long time ago, and these are still the alphas. Spoiler alert, they're holding up better than the others at this point in time. Something stupid I did the other day was pull weeds with these, and so I kind of got that funky smell in them. It's either my nose is stopped up or it's wearing out a little bit, so hopefully we can salvage these. But right here, the man of the hour, $9.91. This NWS cable knife is made in Solingen, as you might and probably should have expected. It looks good, and like I said, I don't want to invest a ton of time here. We will do a comparison with this one. We will do a comparison with a lot of the knives we brought in. Just checking out, though, that appears to be the same blade. However, if you note, as we go to the side, this one has the arch in it, and what is that arch for? It's not decorative. It's actually for cables. So there we are. That's what we picked up from NWS. I think that's all NWS registered in this video. So for those of you can click away, but I would advise against that because there's some really cool stuff coming up. Now, following suit from that note, I have been patiently waiting for this to arrive. It arrived at other places prior. There were other ways I could have ordered it and gotten it in, even with like elaborate shipping times. Patiently waited. KC Tool finally got it, and then I actually waited a little bit longer because I was waiting for a tool of the day. I believe this actually was the tool of the day, but it's not anymore. So what you would need to pay is $32.78. This ties in perfectly with what you see down there. This, if you were unaware, is Knipex cable knife. Their part number is going to be 16-20-50. They call it their folding electrician's knife. Now, I didn't learn of this from KC Tool. I learned of this from Ben over in the UK, and he was able to get this thing a long time ago. I don't remember. I don't know that it would have been summer of last year, but if it wasn't, it was probably like, August, September-ish. And I'm thinking, sweet, this is going to trickle over to me. I'll be able to pick it up real soon. That was the plan. This was originally, I believe, KC Tool was under the impression, like Knipex would have it over here stateside ready to roll like last quarter of 2019-ish. That didn't happen. And I don't recall how long ago. Let's see, this was ordered. Yeah, this might have been the tool of the day on January 30th. So I'm having a really hard time getting this opened, which I think it's because it's so cold right now. What I may have to do is pull the glove off and go to town. So 1 second. Much better. Right here on the backside, what we have got is high quality all-purpose cutter, durable and robust, extremely sharp blade in top quality from, you guessed it, Solingen. In fact, City of Blades right there, prominently displayed. Not even made in Germany, made in Solingen, and I guess they assume and hope that people will know this. Overall length 120 millimeters, weight 85 grams, blade length 80 millimeters. So there's the packaging once more. We might keep that for reference at a later date. However, here it is. Very light, very good feel to it. You're either going to be a fan of these wooden handles or you're not. This is not what you would be accustomed to if you have Case, Old Timer, or Buck from back in the day, whether you got a new or inherited type of a deal. This is more akin to the Stahlwille one that we brought in. Now, the difference being right here, you've sort of got this backside, and you can tie that off, you can put a keychain on it, whatever you need to do. Of course, Knipex with the diamond, they have that there. It does actually work well. Now that I've got it out of the packaging, we can grab it. This opens quite easily as well. Still not used to everything I've been accustomed to lately. I just like flip out, or there's like a knob, an knurled knob, and I can easy open. Not the case with the stuff coming out of Europe, but hey, it is what it is. Of course, none of these are locking either. That's just how it goes. But there it is. Now, for comparison's sake, you can kind of see that. We'll open up the NWS once more. Again, this is sort of I wanted to have it as kind of like a pocket knife shootout, and it just so happens the best way to do that with German branded stuff is through cable knives. Knipex came out with this thing. That's why I didn't ever release the video. I wanted to wait on that one. Wait, we did. But for your viewing enjoyment, I went ahead and grabbed the Stahlwille one as well. It's going to be the closest material-wise to the Knipex. If you're interested in like a comparison and a standalone on all these, that will be coming in the hopefully not too distant future. But for now, we're going to get this guy out of the way off to the side. Get the NWS back over here. But there's our Knipex cable knife that we waited oh so patiently for, along with the single NWS. So, what we're going to move on to now, this might not be the most exciting thing. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do something else. We're going to do GR 164 0852. This is part number 639 from Gedore. It is their combination holding tool. Works M3 through M8. Now, that's going to be right here. This is something I put on my wish list an eternity ago, and I could have sworn it was discontinued. And then when I was coming in there, this was right almost in line with my birthday. I was like, sweet, I'm gonna get the knife or something, another high ticket item I wanted for a long time. And I was just going through clicking on things, and I was like, wait, that's actually in stock. And so I picked it up. And a lot of you will think this is dorky. Some of you will think it's a godsend and a miracle. I'm not sure which camp you will be in. I will say it's a darker blue than sort of like the turquoise Hazet color that you see online. That is fine by me. But if you're thinking like, what in the world is that stupid thing? Is that plastic? Yes, it is. And what this actually is designed to do is to hold small hardware. Ironically, I just had a heater motor that I'd taken apart that I had to clean up on the bench before I started this video. That would have been really smart if I would have kept some of that over here. What I had in mind with this is dash pads, and I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I intend to find out. The price point on it, it was $11.81, I believe. I think when I added it, it was like $8.99, which that seems more appropriate. I'd say this is like a sub $10 tool. That said, if you do things where obviously one tool, let's say, might be like this nut driver, okay, and you're coming in and you've got to obviously have, let's just say for textbook purposes, this would be holding a nut and this would be holding, you know, your fastener. So you've got your quarter deal in here and you're wanting to thread it in, and you've obviously got your body positioned here. Blindly you have to come in between a windshield or some other hard to move object, and you're struggling to hold the tiny nut, right? Something along those lines. This not only will do a good job of holding that, keeping it in place for you, but this extends my reach. You know, it's not not like we're holding it, you know, 30 inches out from our hand or something. Every little bit, though, helps. And I have high hopes, that I truly do, for this thing. And if it doesn't work with what I'm thinking, there are many, countless times I've typically been under the dash or in the trunk of a vehicle, and I've thought, man, if I could just, you know, hold this in place and come in from the other side. Typically, though, if you're like me and the thumb is kind of not able to provide full pressure, you have a jammed finger, you stub one in the shop, something like this could be a really nice addition to what you're trying to accomplish. So, sort of one of those underrated tools. Here's sort of a 1980s pictogram of what we would be doing. Again, there you see. They've got the nuts, they hold the nuts, they come in, they can place it, and go to town. So, will it work? I sure hope so. If it doesn't, I'm going to find something it does work with. And I'm actually pretty excited about that one. Again, I thought it had been discontinued and I was bummed out. It's back. So if you need it, check that down below. We will have, of course, the part number and a direct link for your convenience. With that said, I think we will move to the Hazet side of things. And you're thinking, hey, what's in that box? Well, we're going to find out, but after we open this. Now, what is this? This is probably not going to be something many of you are super thrilled with, but it's their part number 4650-4. And as I hold it up here, we can confirm that this sucker is in fact made in Germany. You can see there in the bottom corner. And we'll just go with NWS this time. I had a phone call, but we did use the NWS knife to open this. And if you're curious, if you haven't spoiled it, what is part number 4650-4? It's this, a small traffic cone. Hazet mascara, a makeup brush for your girlfriend. What is it? This beautiful little machine is simply a terminal cleaner. So, as you should know, if you come in particularly with people that don't take as good a care of their vehicles as you might, if you have to help them install a battery, typically you're going to be disgusted by their terminals because they don't take care of them. They don't have felt pads. They don't have any, petroleum jelly, nothing to prevent corrosion. And these have been really, really nice, and they're specifically designed. They'll work with multiple size terminals. This is sort of overkill, but it's nice at the same time. That way when you throw this in your box, or a tool bag, whatever it might be. You're not going to just be having this constantly cut on canvas or, you know, wrap around other tools. Very simple construction, but essentially you would come in and whatever you're cleaning through the terminal, you just bring this in. If it's tiny terminal, you don't have to go very far. If it's a huge terminal, you come in all the way. It does a super good job. This is kind of like when you're, you know, cleaning pipe before you solder it type of a thing. Right here, though, what is that mess? It looks like a fan or a tsunami of some sort. That is, of course, to clean the actual battery terminal itself. So, case in point, if we have our traditional battery here, we just drop this down and I just spin it around and around. I pull it off. It's got a clean, contaminant-free mating surface for a clean terminal that will drop down. We'll put a little petroleum jelly on. We'll put the felt washers underneath it. We've done our part. It's up to them to maintain it from that point. So why did I bring this in? It was on sale. It was one of those deals I always like to come in and go to the sale items. Also of note, that does, if you see that little rise in the plastic, it is there. And then we can turn it. That way it's latched, if you will. But I go through the sale items typically anytime I make an order. And this sucker was... It's currently $24.13. I don't believe it was that when I bought it. I think it was like 14-ish. So maybe that sale has like slithered away type of a thing. But it was there when I got it, and I assure you it was a pretty good price point. Now, typically what one would use is something like this. I honestly don't know if this is AutoZone, O'Reilly's, Napa. Probably not Napa. Possibly Harbor Freight. This has actually been a decent one, but you can tell. Let's go ahead and open this sucker back up. That's the difference between a quality one and just a cheap one. This will get the job done, but this will do a much better job. The bristle count, where it looks almost black here, that's because there's way more. That's what you're seeing. It's not an optical illusion, that's just a quality piece. Same thing when we flip this over. Note how this has a washer pressed in. That's probably so they could screw around and have shorter bristles. And ultimately what that means, while this will work, it's also going to die sooner. Now, if you prefer sort of like a funky old school knurled setup, this will technically get the job done for you. It does twist and lock as well. That said, I'm excited to put this one to use. I also like that it's a plastic body for obvious reasons. Sometimes things happen, you know. You get called off a job, you come back to it, you're not paying attention. I would much rather have plastic in my hand. So there is that from Hazet. Excited to put it to use. Nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy. But if you're tired of these, if you do this all the time, maybe you do car audio or security systems type of thing, and you're sick of these, you just burn through them, you haven't found a good one, try that one out, because upon initial inspections, I have to say it looks like it's built a little bit better than that one is. Now, coming in, this is something, and that's why these Stahlwille snipe nose pliers are here. I would always call them needle nose. Apparently, they like to use snipe nose overseas, so that's what we'll run with here. This is, of course, from Hazet. Let me find their part number here. 1841 MA-11. This is going to be 145 millimeter. If you didn't guess already, snipe nose pliers. Now, we've never actually brought in a pair of Hazet pliers, so I'm pretty excited about that. Here you can see again, snipe nose pliers, as indicated by the manufacturer. Made in Germany, of course. I'm trying to remember which side I had opened, because I did actually pull these out, unlike some other things. And I will tell you, I've wanted to do this for quite a while. I waited and waited. Price point on these right now is $41.13. I think there was a big sale on Hazet that must be gone or something, because I think it was 30-ish. I could be mistaken. Maybe I'm thinking of something Knipex, but needless to say, I brought these in. Why? One, to try Hazet pliers. Two, to see what their grip was like, because it does look interesting. And three, just to see how they perform. The other big selling point on these, I realize a good way to handle, plier comparisons would be like combination pliers and like a 6, 7, or 8 inch. While those are nice and I do use them, I use needle nose pliers a lot more. I don't know if it's in part, because I've got sockets and wrenches instead of, like having to screw around with pliers all the time. But these just sort of appeal to me, and they're a little bit smaller than these from Stahlwille. And the reason I did that is A, for confined spaces, right? The channel locks, which have still been fantastic, they just constantly sit on the bench. They are huge, and there are limitations that come with that in their size and their weight. So these are much smaller. I can tell you the grip, it's not going to be like, soft finish like you might expect. It's sort of more of like a plastic, kind of like Actually, it's just like their screwdrivers, but I know most of you are probably not familiar with them. That said, the finished end actually did impress me when I pulled these out of the packaging. They look really good. You can see them made in Germany there. That other text in the middle, that's going to be your part number. But the teeth, let's see if we can actually just zoom in on this for you. There's a good look at the teeth. Again, I really like cross-hatched on needle nose. It may just be a personal preference. It's not always what you would want, but for me, I'd say like 90% of the time, it's what I would prefer. We've got our grabbing section there for nuts and bolts. The cutter actually looks surprisingly well. Kind of makes me wonder if I need to investigate their side cutters or something, but the finish on it is fantastic. Very impressed here initially. There's a close-up of the multi-component handle. I'm trying to think if they have a lower tiered. Typically this is what you see, but you typically can't find videos of people with Hazet pliers. Now what I want to do here, this is the Stahlwille snipe nose pliers we brought in quite a while back. I have to say, out of everybody's 2-component handles, this is one of my preferred grips. I think in part just because of like the black rubber. It provides more texture, just feels better in hand. Something I've not been impressed with. Number one, the first time I ever used these, I was hanging signs. As innocent as that sounds, and I cut picture frame wire and cable ties depending on what I'm doing. And it was a deal where I expected these to just go through it like butter. They did not. And then the other thing that was concerning, I'm not sure that the camera's going to show it, but this is like the only pair of pliers I brought in. It doesn't matter if it's Knipex, doesn't matter if it's Gedore, Wiha. I've got several of their pliers, and theirs are not German. Like these are from Vietnam. They have that kind of like bad grinding job on them. But if you look at them, and these have been out quite a bit, and by out I just mean in the shop, not left in the toolbox. There's not like any grit, grime, surface rust, flash rust, any of that stuff. I have not used, you know, these Stahlwille pliers in any situation that would have like contaminated them to promote or encourage, you know, flash rusting. And that's what they've done. And it's really weird because, again, if you didn't know, I'm in Amarillo, and while we're not the desert, we're pretty dadgum close to it. You know, if I like lived in Miami, you know, or somewhere, you know, like Mediterranean type of thing, essentially a place with humidity and moisture, which we typically don't have here, I'd kind of expect that. Like I said, this is the first pair that I've had do that. They're still structurally fine, and the grip is really, really good. But I wanted to bring these in, see how they hold up. There's kind of like a side-by-side between those two. Let me know if you want to see like more in detail on these or something, but for now that's kind of all I've got for you. Again, it's just sort of curiosity, and I'm stepping down the size just a little bit to hopefully pick up maybe a little bit more functionality. The grip on these is not bad, but it is kind of slick. I'm sure over time I'll kind of break it in with crud on my hands, but we will run with that for now, and that leaves us with one big item. Now, like I said, I'm sort of expediting this one because it was the birthday edition, and one of the items, I've been bringing in a lot of my wish list stuff over the last couple of tool hauls. This was obviously one of them, but it was tool of the day. That up top that's been sitting there teasing you that you might have seen it, obviously it's from Stahlwille. And this is something I had wanted for a really long time. In recent videos, particularly the Harbor Freight ones, I brought up, you know, possibly trying a flex head ratchet, and I was considering Icon just because it was new, never used it. You know, I can't find the 3/8 flex head. I don't know if it's like not come back. 1/4 inch ones are like 35-ish. The 1/2 inch drive, which you can also find online, are like 45 to 52-ish. I think one might be a long one. But the 3/8 is never there. I don't know a price point on it. Truth be told, prior to Icon existing and, you know, like a bargain basement price I could try, I had planned when we hit 5,000 subscribers, I was going to bring in snap-on screwdrivers, probably a pair of their pliers, which Yoda actually showed them to me a long time. They look really good. And then I was going to get a flex head ratchet. I've never in my life owned a flex head ratchet. We've never had one at work. It's just like this right here, which some of you mentioned is basically Pittsburgh Pro. From Tecton, I'd never had a rotary head ratchet. And instead of sinking in a crud ton of money and something I wasn't sure I would like, I went this route, got the 3-piece set for basically what I would have paid for, you know, a reputable brand standalone. They've been good to me. I've actually used that quite a bit. I think it's the quarter I've used the most. But 5,000 subscribers, I don't know when that'll happen or if it'll happen. Who knows? YouTube's a crazy place when you don't use clickbait and things like that. But Stahlwille, I have been very, very impressed. Again, this will probably be a later video. But in terms of the ratchets I brought in, and there's some that you haven't seen yet, some I need to make videos on, some that have not come in yet. But just sticking with what I have brought in, you know, German-wise, we've got the 916 HP from Hazet. We've got the Wera Cyclops, which was 1/2 inch as well. I believe the first Stahlwille ratchet I brought in is right here. This was tool of the day. It was like super cheap. I typically prefer the padded handles, but this introduced me to Stahlwille, and I was very, very impressed with what I experienced. At a later point in time, I believe it was also tool of the day, don't hold me to that, but this is just their standard 3/8 comfort grip. This and the Nipros, they are right up there at the very top. And if you don't know what this is, the part number 452 QR 12261010 might also help you. Price on this sucker $168. That's right in line with Snap-on tool truck territory. It's actually a little bit cheaper than most of them. And what it is a flex head ratchet from Stahlwille. Believe it or not, I've had this since, I guess, Monday. It was one of those things. It was at the post office, and I assumed it was in the box. You know, like I'd open my box and have a key for the bigger box. No. They totally screwed me over last Saturday. And I had to wait until Monday because they yellow slipped it. I'm not sure why. I guess they probably just had the other boxes filled. But there it is. I have not opened it. And we're going to do so. I guess it makes sense to use the Stahlwille one since we're here, right? So I'm going to come in back here, make as clean of a cut as I can. Which this actually is a really good blade. Spoiler alert. So we're going to drop this down. I haven't experienced it. I haven't played with it outside of the bag, that is. But there she is. And I have not seen anything on these. I've not seen any videos. I've not seen any reviews. I've not seen any articles. And if you'll note, you're thinking, hey, wow, that's a weird place to put your quick release. That's not. This is actually a locking flex head. The biggest thing I always know people with flex heads complain about is that they're sloppy. They're floppy, whatever you want to call it. Floppy works with the F on flex, right? And essentially over time, when I played with the Pittsburgh Pros at Harbor Freight and stuff, sometimes if it's not tight, which you can typically come in and tighten it, of course, but as it loosens, like maybe while you're under the engine bay, you know, working on a job, if it starts to get loose, it's floppy, and that's not good. It's a hindrance. It's an annoyance. You're going to have to stop, tighten your ratchet. You don't want to do that. With this, we have it locked in place here, right, in typical fashion, just like this little 3/8 one here, which this is a good comparison for you. Side by side, you can kind of get a feel. We're not even down to the start of the handle with this one. When I bring these down, we have essentially the exact same length here, but again, you can see this flex head is quite a bit longer, and that should provide us, you know, with a nice little assortment of Stahlwille stuff here. But in terms of the ratchet itself, super, super quiet. This is 80 teeth. It's going to have a 4.5 return, and obviously left and right selector switch, nice and recessed. It's kind of streamlined as well. Right here, unlike a lot of ratchets, they do, again, think aviation. If we're working on a jet engine, what do we not want to do? Have our ratchet self-destruct, splinter, break, fracture, whatever, and drop internal components or tiny screws into a jet engine. And so that's kind of where that logic comes from anyway. But quick release, this is probably one of the best quick release mechanisms too, truth be told. Keep in mind what I was using prior to this was Craftsman, the old school Craftsman. So take from that what you will, but you can kind of see the ball detent there and everything. Now this is locked into place. You could probably snap it if you wanted to. I don't, because I just paid good money for this thing. But when I hit this button, it's not the quick release, it's not like they relocated it. It's so we can do this. And obviously you've got your choice of positions, but it will actually lock in a couple of them. If I'm remembering, this would be 30 degrees down, so if you picture this on parallel to our table, this would be 30 degrees off. The next position that it's going to lock in is going to be straight up, just like we had it out of the package. Now coming in here, we can go anywhere we want to, but you heard it click. This, if that looks familiar to you, it should. This would be 30 up. So we've had 30 down, dead even, 30 up. And then again, I press the button and listen for the click. That position right there, if that looks about double what we just had, you got a good eye, and that is correct. That would be 60 degrees up. So those are the positions we can lock it in. Now obviously we could press down if we wanted to go full 90. We can do that, which I think this would actually be pretty handy. This is sort of what I envision with flex head stuff. Obviously I'm going to put it through the paces. It's my only one. I've never actually gotten to use one. I may have, but if I did, you know, it was like somebody else's and I don't remember it well. But this is the only one I own, so it's going to be the only one I can use, and it will be the one that I do use. And you can see kind of the catch right there. If I articulate this down, we'll catch at 30. It's actually come down. So there's 30, there's 60, there's dead even. I'm pretty impressed by it, I have to say. Again, I don't have a Snap-on, I don't have a Mac, I don't have anything Tool Truck brand to compare it to right now. I don't have Icon to compare it to. I don't have any flex head ratchet to compare it to because, again, I've never owned one. But, in terms of your first flex head, I think you could do a lot worse than this. This was not tool of the day. This was honestly just, it was my birthday, and I thought, you know what? I really have wanted that thing for a long time. Don't own one. I think it would come in handy. I'm pulling the trigger. And we did. So, that is that. Again, I'll probably make a standalone video on that. Let me know if there's anything in particular you would like to see. But I have never seen a single video or article or anything on that. There's no reviews on KC Tool. I'm not sure why. Again, personally, out of what I've brought in, I've been super happy, super impressed with the Stahlwille ratchets. This one I by far use the most. I've tried to keep the handle as clean as possible. But, you almost don't even know I'm turning it. It's that quiet. Again, if you've brought in Nipros yet, these two are kind of just right there at the top in my opinion. So, and I realize now that was not the final item. I actually have another one. This one would set you back about 40 bucks, 42, 47. It's from Wiha. It is their part number 107149. I can tell you right now, this is a bit longer than I intended for it to be, and this is one of the items I'd already picked that we are going to do a standalone on. And what I'm going to do, I've given you a part number, I've given you a price. This is kind of a special, sort of limited type of a deal, and it's pretty cool, and it's also going to delay another video I had in works, but it's screwdrivers. And if you were curious what Wiha has, it's right here. And if you're thinking, hey, are those wood handles? They are. And if you didn't know Wiha had wood handles, now you do. And they didn't for a long time. They did, and then they kind of didn't. You know, they moved on, done new things, you know, right? But this is sort of like a nostalgic throwback. It's in vintage packaging even. And there's some really nice workmanship on here. But I told you there's going to be a couple items we weren't going to spend a ton of time on, but we would hit back. That's going to be one of them. So my apologies, but rest assured we'll have a standalone video. That way you're not sitting here for another 15 to 20 minutes. And we'll compare it and contrast it with the other wood handle drivers, fear not. But we're just going to wait a little bit on that one. So with that said, I think we had a pretty good tool haul here. Again, I've got like 2 or 3. Everything's been back ordered, and so it's hard for me to keep tabs on it, and that's why I don't record. And I'm like, oh, I'll just wait for the back ordered item. And sometimes that works well, sometimes you regret it. Regardless, though, there's 1 or 2 prior to this one that I need to record still. I think everything has come in now. And then there's, shortly after this was tool of the day, there's another wicked cool tool of the day. Pulled the trigger on that, got some neat stuff as well on that one. It should be coming maybe Valentine's Day-ish. I think it was like February 8th they expected it, and then maybe it like shifted back to the 11th or something, somewhere in there. I don't know. It's just going to show up and make me happy at whatever time it does. But end result should be you will be happy too, because it's another pretty sweet tool haul. But like I said, that's what we brought in. We got the NWS single cable knife. We got the Knipex after waiting oh so long. Cashed in. That's basically the birthday gift to myself. Happy birthday to me. Anybody else that's had a birthday recently, hope you had a good one. If you've got one coming up, I hope you have a great one. And more importantly, if you're looking for a gift for yourself, that's a pretty good option. Either one of these, pretty good option. This is sort of just curiosity, and again, I think it was a pretty good chunk of money off on that. I honestly wanted to say I paid like 30 something for it, so maybe it was a mistake, maybe the sale just expired, and I don't know, but when I did check, it was back up to around 40ish. So with that said, I will quit rambling. I had a great time. My feet are absolutely freezing, and I'm gonna possibly crank some more stuff out here, maybe get inside, make my first meal of the day at like 6 o'clock, but who knows. My apologies if this ran a little long. Again, it was just fresh on my mind getting to use the chisel driver as an actual chisel, not a striking cap. Just break a screw loose type of a thing, you know, shock it, get it to turn. I abused that thing. I literally used it as a chisel. I wanted to update you before I forget about it or before it's not relevant type of a thing. And then we just had some really cool stuff here. So hopefully you enjoyed. Again, if you have used the flex head from Stahlwille, let me know, because again, I couldn't find anything on it. If you haven't, let me know if there's anything in particular you'd like to see in a standalone video, how it compares to others, whatever it might be. Knipex cable knife, I know some of you were able to pick that up a while back. I patiently waited, and then I waited, and I'm kind of cheap, I'm not going to lie, and it worked out really well. I was waiting for a cool tool of the day and had every intention of buying it. As fate would have it, that sucker was tool of the day, so it worked out really well. The NWS cable knife was added actually not too long ago, so just the standalone one is kind of their most recent iteration. And again, we've got the video playing where I can finally show you all of them, and it worked out really well because now we have the single NWS and a Knipex, and that's about it. I will quit rambling, but I had a great time. I hope you did too. LoneStarMopars.com is the website for all the Wiha people, wood handle driver fans. Fear not, that'll be standalone coming up soon as well. Just a heads up, it does exist though, so that's kind of one of those under the radar things, you know. The gloves are from Alpha. They've held up very well aside from the stupid time I decided to pull weeds, which made them reek, which that happens to all gloves, but it does seem to be fading, or I'm just losing my sense of smell. 50-50 honestly at this point in time. But with that said, thanks again for watching. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three will be at Lone Star Mopars. Again, anything specific you want to see on any of this stuff I brought in, let me know. If I need to do a comparison between the Hazet and whatever brand, which I don't even know, I just know it's Chinese on this one, I'm willing to do that as well. I just figured it's not quite as exciting as some of the other stuff, but anything in particular, let me know. I'll try to accommodate you. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you have not subscribed, I encourage you to do so. New videos every Saturday, 9 a.m. Texas time. With that said, thanks for watching. I will catch you back here for more action from the shop.